Nothing like a good old Texas-themed road trip. A good day or good night, whichever it is, when you're taking in this fine podcast. My name is JP Heath at Texas Sports Pod on Twitter. That is Paul Dunham at FM at HS Coach Dunham. This is the Texas Porch, and tonight we recap our recent trip behind the Pine Curtain. First up, before that fun and frivolity, if you have not subscribed to the Texas Porch, that's a big help to us. We're on all the big podcast outlets, and I don't know if you knew this, P. Diddy, but even Alexa, you just say, play the Texas Porch podcast. I tested that a couple days ago, and bam, there you have it. But the Mitch designed the TexasPorch.com website as well. But a long time no see to my partner for 3 days and 2 nights of mischief, the P. Diddy. How you doing?
Greetings, sir. Long time no see. It's been like 24 hours or less. So, yeah. Had a good trip.
Overall, to kind of get to the ending first before we talk about the details and fill in the gaps, I think we had another A-plus road trip. 4th straight year we've done this, and I see many, many more. If anyone else dares accept the challenge to come on the crew, they're welcome to come as well.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it was thrown out there. You know, no one accepted the challenge of tackling the piney woods of East Texas. We had a spare bed in our luxurious dwellings, and
barely.
It would have been much more dynamic with another member of the crew with us. But we worked out. It was fine. It was good. We did survive.
Yeah, to recap the 4 years of our road trips with the crew, 3 years ago that started off the run, Mitch, Paul, and I went to Big Bend, which will be repeated sometime, I think. That's one you got to do every few years. And then 2 years ago, Paul and I did what I named in our file that I started sharing. I don't know if you thought that was weird or not, but I just had to keep it straight because I knew in future years I would not be able to fill in those details. But a couple years back, we went to, I guess, just Houston. Very close for me, far for you. We went to an Astros game, went to San Jacinto Monument, had some Killen's barbecue for the first time. So you begin to detect trends that Tex-Mex is consumed and barbecue is consumed on each of these road trips. And last year we went to see the great Robert Earl Keen, I guess you could say the musical godfather of the Texas Porch. I saw him over in Kerrville. And then this year, which we're going to break down right now, but we settled on the Northeast Texas area of Jefferson / Longview / Marshall. We met in Tyler. We met at the greatness of Stanley's famous barbecue, but I had the Mother Clucker. Ironically, the greatest chicken sandwich you can ever have is at a barbecue place, but that was the perfect. I think that's kind of our, that's where we're our happiest, Paul. We're meeting at Stanley's, and
absolutely.
I guess we've met there, 3-4 times now?
Yeah, at least. I mean, it's almost exactly halfway. It's not a difficult drive. It can be an easy day trip if we're not, venturing on out of Tyler to other places as a unit. But if we're just meeting up, then it's a good place to do it. We've done it, around Christmas time. We've done it other times of the year when we couldn't stretch out a longer road trip. But it's a couple hours from both of us. Under that, get there. Yeah, the food is great. It's the atmosphere is good. I mean, the wait staff the other day was just like, they were so with it. I mean, we were, right after open on a Monday, so not exactly a giant crowd, which was good. Mm-hmm. We don't want crowds these days for all the reasons, but pandemic related. But yeah, it was great. We had a great wait staff. They were very, very organized with the whole distancing. You couldn't touch the machines to get more tea or drinks or whatever. They were handling that part for you, just making sure it was all safe, following all their regulations and rules, and a few tables blocked off and stuff like everybody else has experienced at restaurants currently. But yeah, great food. I mean, I got brisket and ribs, and just a little sweet on the ribs, which is good. Very tender, even for the first rack off the warmer, on a Monday morning. So they were ready to roll. Brisket was awesome as always. So, and sweet tea thrown on top of it. It's always good.
Yeah, you did some business with those ribs. I was eyeing them. I wasn't going to come out and ask for it, but I think if it was at the end of the trip instead of the beginning, I was worried about the sweetness, if I could have it with the diet that I was attempting to stay on. But, man, those ribs looked really good. I mentioned the chicken sandwich. They have the Mother Clucker is this I don't know how, it almost doesn't taste like chicken because it's so tender. And they got the Mother Clucker sauce. You're the foodie. Some mayonnaise-based chicken sauce that goes on there, and they've got a fried egg on top of it, cheese, just amazing. The brisket, I would say, is about a 6 or a 7 out of 10. I've had an awakening with our trip to Bodacious that we had later. So the brisket just candidly is not my favorite, but I got it chopped. So now I'm kind of in this limbo, as we talked about at lunch at Bodacious. Chopped brisket, sliced brisket. I kind of think to get that moisture, I've got to get the chopped because it's worked out for other places. But 2 times in a row now going to Stanley's, it just hasn't been my absolute favorite. I'm still a fatty, a foodie. I'll still eat it, but maybe I do go with the slice like you did next time.
Yeah, I choose sliced because I like the texture of the way it is. I want a bite of bark in the place where I think the bark would be. Nothing wrong with chopped. You get kind of a consistent flavor and texture with a chopped brisket, and most places will put a certain amount of the rendered fat and whatnot in it, but they don't want it to be greasy because that's the reason some people get that is to add their own amount of sauce or their own amount of seasoning and flavor. It's easier to eat chopped on a bun or something if you're having a sandwich, and most people will put a sauce on top of that. Mm-hmm. They like their meat sauce. I will dip brisket in the house sauce occasionally, but usually I let brisket stand on its own.
Exactly.
I like that. Yeah, I like that really rendered, cooked bark fat layer at the top. I like a little bit of that. I'm going to choose kind of a medium slice when I'm going. They'll ask you want moist or marbled is one way they'll offer that, or lean. And no brisket is perfectly lean, but I like the texture and the moisture level of a marbled piece. So chopped is good. You're going to add sauce to it and you're going to eat it on a bun, or if you're just going to eat it, however, chopped is great if you're going to throw it on top of mac and cheese or mix it in with queso or something like that. But for me, I like the sliced, but to each his own. No judgment. And by the way, I did offer you a rib. Those words were thrown out there.
Okay.
You did not accept. So maybe you were still in debate at that point.
I think I was trying to be a good boy at that point. So yeah, that is true. I do remember that now. But
I was not hoarding it like it was third grade, and I was keeping the glue at my table. It wouldn't share with you. I was offering.
But you did have, I didn't want to make that sound like he's this miser of ribs over there. But I look over and Paul's got this pile of rib bones just right there. He cleaned them, but that says a lot about the quality of the meat too. That it was falling off the bone good. But to kind of paint the picture, since this is an audio medium, you if you've never been to Stanley's, you get there and walk down, at least the entrance that we're at, you walk down this big flight of stairs. They had these huge signs for not wearing a mask, and they had this newer-ish, I've never been there since the last couple times, so they have this bar area that's AC, but the rest of the spot outside is this huge covered deck, patio deck, supersized porch area. And then there's a smaller spot inside, but the outside, and we couldn't go inside because of the COVID regulations, but outside they have this huge stage. They're big on live music. And it's just, it's quintessential Texas, quintessential East Texas. And there's not anywhere like that I know. In between Dallas and Houston, there can't be many other places that have everything all together. So you're looking at one venue that has the music, the vibes, the food, the drink, the people. It scores up there 9.5 out of 10. It's just an amazing place.
Yeah, it seems like we're always meeting at lunch the times when we go, just because of travel or whatnot. But it's got to be a really cool vibe, at night if they've got live music or whatnot. Now I don't know how much of that's going on right now. Didn't really see any concert lineup schedule or anything, but it's kind of wedged literally right between. It's a strange intersection. It's not on the corner. It's of a major thoroughfare there in the town in Tyler, right across from the major hospital. So there's a lot of that going on. It's kind of an industrial area behind it, literally on the other side of the railroad tracks, right there in the off of downtown area. So it's kind of wedged in its own little odd shaped corner there, right off the road. But most of the parking's in back. But man, you walk down those stairs, just like you just find this little oasis. Like it's just calming. They've got fans blowing, and they've got shade strategically placed in places so you're not just getting the Texas summer heat bearing down on you. So But yeah, great place to go. Like I said, the staff is always just so super nice, and they were extremely cautious and careful and organized. So we appreciated that. Most places we went to over the whole weekend the whole time we were, one weekend, seemed like a weekend. It was in the middle of the week, but everybody's pretty much following guidelines more than we may have thought from being in a little more rural area of East Texas.
So we caravan it. We go up to our spot in Jefferson. And again, we said earlier we picked Jefferson. At least we kind of settled on the spot we did because it was of the more affordable options. And Mary,
Yes.
Mary with her pictures, the greatness of Mary, the kindest soul that we met on the trip, it looked like it was close to the water, which we found out later it was. Buddy, but it wasn't. We needed a place to lay our head. Check. We got that. And we got what we paid for. How's that for spinning it? I did make a couple of what I thought were funny comments. 3 people will die here tonight in this area.
Thankfully, that didn't happen that we're aware of.
It didn't happen. So, I think I also said you could walk 8 different directions and get meth in like 3 minutes. That's what I said.
Yeah,
too.
I'm pretty sure. Clearly, we're not meth consumers. However, if someone was in that business or in need of such a substance, I feel pretty certain it could be found for the right price near where we were staying. Again, not our mission, not our goal. We're all clean and sober, all those good things. But this was just setting the scene for you. Picture trailer park, but not organized. And basically everyone kind of doing their own version of a classic redneck front yard in front of a trailer house. That's pretty much what's going on here.
Yeah, the lawns weren't exactly well maintained at all these, what they call cabins, but were single wides. And again, all this comes out very haughty, very elitist. We were as middle class as it comes.
Yes.
Mary, say it 100 times. Mary was wonderful. Met her husband too. It felt bad that he's 100 times harder worker than I am. But we noticed coming in and going out different places, they were not ashamed of the rebel flag in the neighborhood.
Very prominent on several locations on our trip in East Texas. Not something we see every day in our current suburban places that we dwell most of our days, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So
we'll leave it at that. But the actual structure that we were in, I will have to brag on myself, reach behind, pat myself on the back there. I did not clip my head in the ceiling fan once, but I came really close a couple of times. I think one time you said, watch out there. But they were tight accommodations. But again, it was fine. Ended up, I slept well both nights. But it was a little tight. I did cherish the warm in my big shower coming home when I got to rinse off later when I got home, because it wasn't the biggest of bathrooms either.
No, yeah, it wasn't. It was even the spigot was a little short for me, and I'm not very tall. So you being a much taller individual probably had to splash a little, picture Elf or
yes,
the movie Elf, where he's splashing the water up on him from the tiny elf shower. But it's kind of what it felt like. But the accommodations were we needed cool. I think you didn't finish your checklist, but we needed a place to lay our head, somewhere that actually had some form of AC to keep us alive in the whole, summer heat in East Texas, and, hopefully bug and varmint free. And as far as I know, we survived. We did check off all those boxes. There was a fridge, there was a freezer, so we were good.
Yeah, and there was sustenance. Mary baked us some baked goods, and we had a number of platelets, just for full disclosure. And then the brownies, I didn't give Paul any fair warning. I just shoveled like 9 bite-sized brownies into my mouth.
I got a bite. So, yeah, I got a bite. It was good.
So we get settled, and we're like, okay, what do we want to do? So that Monday night, great time for a road trip because all the other suckers are working, but we're here Monday nighting it up, Tuesday night. That's where you avoid crowds. And yes, worldwide pandemic aside, that's where you can do a lot of things, have a lot of fun when you have a beginning of the week or middle of the week road trip. I think we nailed it there for the timing side of it.
Yeah, it seemed like it was perfect timing. So, we didn't really know what we wanted to do. We kind of had our list of possibilities, but one of them included going to Shreveport, which I had never done as an adult. I've never been to the boats, as they're all referred to. We
not Texas. We went to not Texas, yeah.
Yeah, not Texas. So we did leave the lovely state, but crossed over into Louisiana a little bit and had a good time. So we knew we'd eat at some point, but we donated to the cause, and I had my limit. You had yours, and
yes.
I'm not a big gambler on this side of the table over here. Just take my money. I'm going to enjoy it as long as it'll last. In my case, it lasted probably 10 minutes for my limit. JP stretched his out a little further, and at one point could have probably paid for the trip on his own. But anyway, the Lady Luck did not fall in his favor as it worked out. So we did end up having to continue to dig deep to pay for the rest of our trip. But we had fun. I mean, it was every other machine was turned off, and there was lots of masks were required. There was facial scans and temperature scans on the way in, and sanitizer and all that. We did not seem to be unsafe in any way. So we felt fairly comfortable, and we spritzed ourselves with as much sanitizer as we could every time we had a chance. So we had a good time. It was fun experience in old Shreveport town.
Not Texas was so fun, and I mean that added to the whole trip was magnificent. If you can't read between the lines already, we had a lot of fun. But so I got up a bunch by my standards, and one time, I don't know if this is your hint or not, but you said, "Okay, what's your number?"
I kept watching your number. I'm like, well, all right.
So
that would pay for a lot of our trip here, but all right, it's your money, man.
But
I'll watch.
Again, like I told you a couple times that night and the next day, that's where they get you. I mean, that's exactly where they just reach into your pocket and steal your money. Do all but doing that. They just have you at the right position to be able to do that, because you always think you can win more. So anyway, we get done with the not Texas gambling experience, and then we find our way to go to Superior Grill in Shreveport, and had an old manager at an old restaurant I used to wait tables at. He was one of the managers here at this place. Didn't do my homework, didn't reach out ahead in a time enough, but that was some great grub. Thanks for the dinner, by the way, to pull the curtain back. Paul paid for that one. And, of course, I picked the most expensive. I'd ask Paul, I said, hey, do you mind if I get these?
$73 fajitas. I don't know, man. That was no, it wasn't that much. But, no, they looked really good. You got the shrimp wrapped or bacon wrapped shrimp with the little jalapeno and cheese and all the fixins there. Mm-hmm. I got crawfish enchiladas, which that was a first for me. I was like, all right, we're close enough to the coast. We're almost, in Cajun country. So I thought, why not? Very good. Cooked very well. Good red sauce on there, and all the sides and everything were great too. So I was very impressed. Good stuff. I had several comments on Instagram that people that were aware of it and definitely had been there before. So they were high praise for it as well. So good pick there. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. We tend to know our Mexican food, and we kept the queso streak alive. We had a big old bowl of white queso there as well. After our queso trip, and I went to Superior Grill, we go back, and we may or may not have had some adult beverages or two in the tiny house, which I later said, this is not that I had any doubts beforehand, but I knew that I'd never exist in a tiny house because it was so tight together. But there was something really, really cool about it. Not just you and me hanging out, as we've done it now, not even our life in a lot of porch opportunities, the genesis of this stinking podcast, but just being there, having nothing to do, having nothing to worry about. I think we watched the same newscast like 5 times each night.
Yeah, just some good old Arklatex coverage there. Of new weather was every 5 minutes. It felt like when you didn't need any weather reports, folks. Just newsflash: it is hot, it's dry, there's no change in sight. But yet they bring on Bob or Susie or whoever it was, giving us the lowdown, and then the same 7, stories in a row about COVID and nationwide, and then bring it down local, and then schools starting, not starting. So anyway, yeah, we got all caught up on our worldly and local news in the Arklatex region while we were camping out on over the air DTV. It was great.
We get up Tuesday, sleep in. We just said, hey, let's sleep in till whenever. We had separate beds. Paul demanded it on the trip. So we get up and we said, hey, let's go to Bodacious. And for those that don't know, somehow, I imagine we have a very high contingent of Heath and Dunham and East Texas listenership here, still in the relative infancy of the Texas Porch podcast. But if you don't know about Bodacious BBQ, it's a chain. We kind of figured out in mostly East Texas, and I think there's one in San Angelo. I really like the Bodacious BBQ in Lufkin. There's Lufkin BBQ, there's Bodacious. I really like Bodacious, but with all apologies to the Lufkin Bodacious BBQ, this put most, and no insult to the other Bodacious, because this Bodacious BBQ in Moberly and Longview put most every barbecue restaurant in Texas, the best barbecue state, to absolute freaking shame. There wasn't a long line, and we'll get into some of the food particulars here in just a second, but man, we almost did it a couple weeks before, but I'm really glad this was kind of the highlight of this trip here, because that delivered and then some.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think just about everybody that lives anywhere in the East Texas area, like we said, has probably encountered or seen or heard of Bodacious BBQ. It's a very familiar script logo, and it's been around for a couple of generations, really, from what I understand. The original is this location, as we found out thanks to that radio recording you sent me from a couple months ago from Patrick Netherton out of Shreveport, a little radio show out there. Shout out for this segment that you sent me, but it kind of discusses the background on Bodacious itself, and more importantly, this one location. So Brian Bingham's the current proprietor there. He and his wife run the show, and he's the pitmaster and brains behind the organization. As he said, I'm the cook, she's the brains. So as we all know in some of our relationships, that's usually the case. So each one of the locations, from what I understand, it is a franchise. They have a franchise buy-in or whatever it is. I don't know the logistics of the business itself, but each owner is responsible for their content. So they purchase their meats, they create their menu. There are standards that have to be set that they, have to provide as a Bodacious franchise, but they get to use the logo. They get to use the logos and all the things that are prepared on a larger scale to provide some of the seasonings and whatnot.
The sauce,
are all
you
used
think the sauce too?
Consistently.
I think the sauce too was something that, to me, and the sauce is amazing at the Bodacious I go to, and it tasted spot on, just enough spicy, and they had a sweeter, like a more mild version too. That was just out of this world too.
Yeah, sauce options are good. So yeah, I think a lot of that is produced, on site, but some of it is also available. It's available on shelves in stores and things too. They had some for sale there. So seasoning, spices, some of those things are consistent. But what they're allowed to do is acquire their meat from wherever they're comfortable with based on where they're at. I think 44 Farms is a popular meat provider of really high quality, prime cuts of meat and whatnot to lots of barbecue locations and restaurants across the state. Maybe even more, but they are allowed to come up with their own menus and they're allowed to be creative. And that's one thing that Brian there at Moberly has definitely kind of bought into. He's relatively new to the game. He doesn't have 1,000 skins on the wall, but he has got something really amazing going there. I mean, he is on the big list with the Texas Monthly. So it's incredible, man. I was just blown away. Everything we had on our plate was, I could have chosen 15 more things to add to our pile there, but because we polished it all off. I mean, so potato salad, I'm a potato salad guy. I like it almost any way I can get it. I have my preferences, but this was like, to me, the ultimate. It's kind of made out of red skin potatoes with some of the skin still on. They were sliced as opposed to cubed or chopped or mashed. So really good, creamy, real deep flavor, creaminess with, a little bit of onion, a little bit of the normal things you would expect there. Not any mustard that I detected, maybe a little bit, but excellent. So I bought too much and we polished it off. There wasn't a scrap left.
Yeah, no leftovers for these guys.
No, there was no to-go box on this day.
Telling that part of the story backwards, there wasn't a long line there, but did you get the bond? Like, okay, first off, this man comes around the corner and goes, like, everybody's masked up, and he goes, "You here, you here." And you couldn't hear him because he was about, 10 feet away. You're here, you here. Yeah. And so he kind of looked at us. So I knew he was asking us something, and then you kind of picked up the conversation. But he was wanting to sit us all at the same table. He said, what I figured I deduced was that he had one more table. And so it turned out it was a son, or it was a father-in-law and a man in front of us. And then there was a single man in front of them or in between us. And then there was me and you, the besties. But then, so I left with the son of the other group. We didn't know each other. And so we walk in there, and you didn't see this part. And I don't think I told you about it, but they tried to sit us at this one table. But what the usher guy, Mr. Bodacious, didn't know, not the pitmaster that you were talking about earlier, but what he didn't know was that there was this single guy. So he was trying to force 3 different parties to sit together. And so cue up the Curb Your Enthusiasm music. I just stood there and waited. And eventually the other guys there's only 3 tables, and we couldn't sit at any other spots. They're like these old school desks that were set out. You couldn't sit there. It'd have been perfect. But then they had these 3 other tables that didn't have chairs. So they obviously they wanted to space everybody out, which was perfect. It turned out it was just absolutely perfect. But so eventually there was a table of like 4 guys. There was another table of 3 guys. So they got up. So then Paul, I don't know if you were expecting me to be with a new bestie and a new member of the podcast. We turned out kind of bonding and talking food with them later on. Him and we called him Fake Randy Cody, a ticket character from Dallas radio fame.
Maybe it was the real Randy Cody. I don't know. Not even fake, just the real one right there.
He was not shy at all about talking to everybody. But anyway, so we finally I felt kind of bad because we had our own table that could have sat like maybe 5 or 6 people, but once we got in, we were both kind of locked in, and we did some damage. And that brisket, a little more elaboration on that. That brisket, I put it up there with Cooper's, and we were talking during. I'm more of a Lockhart barbecue guy. You're Blacks. Nothing wrong with Blacks, but had Lockhart barbecue and Lockhart, Cooper's, and I mean right now, just for the sake of recency bias, I'd have to put Bodacious, the Longview, the Moberly one, up at the top because that. It had to have been the best brisket I've had in this kind of new barbecue renaissance. And me actually knowing what I know now, and a lot of that through you, just that brisket was just off the chain, as the kids said in 2012.
You can do a lot with a poor cut of meat to make it tolerable and give it a good flavor and make it tender and do what you want. But when you start out with really, really incredible choice, not actual choice, but prime cut of meat.
Gotcha,
choice is a different cut of meat, but it like really good stuff. And then you do all the right things to it that works for your system. And like most pitmasters will tell you, I can tell you everything I do and you can't duplicate it. You can't take it back and duplicate it because everything is different. Every day when you fire up that pit, some variable is going to change. How humid is it? How hot is it that day? How dry is your wood? Where is the wood from? All those kinds of things matter. How hot do you get it to start out with and what temperature stays? So there's all these variables. But when you can produce a quality meat like that with something you start out with is a good cut to start with, man, it was marbled good, really, really well. It had great flavor. It wasn't a giant pile of grease. It had plenty of flavor. The bark was really, really good. Their rub is more of a hill country rub. You'll find a lot of places have a lot more flavors in East Texas and some in West Texas. They add different flavors to their rubs and whatnot, and whatever other things they may inject or spritz on as they cook is more common in other places. Hill country, a little more simple, a little more, just kind of a savory, not so much sweet or whatever. But anyway, this was kind of a more of a hill country style, and I'm not sure exactly what wood they use. I think post oak, but I'm not positive. I didn't ask that question, but It was good. I mean, it was just very tender, fork tender. I mean, there was a knife. I don't think either one of us used our knife for anything.
Yeah. Just cut it with a plastic fork there. It just went right through it. It was amazing.
Yeah. It didn't need anything else. And like we said, the sauce was just, like a little addition of a little sweet little kick. Then we got pulled pork. That was kind of a last minute addition to the roster. I'm a sucker for a really good pulled pork. Pork is probably my overall favorite meat to smoke, just because of the flavor possibilities. And again, most of the time people go real sweet on their pork. This was the meat itself was drier, but not to say that it wasn't good. It was not greasy at all. So, sometimes pork is most of its own, moisture is from the fat content of pork in general is higher, but this was very well done. Had a bark on it. It's difficult to get a good bark on pork sometimes.
Yeah, that's what threw me off. I didn't expect that. And I'm very much the novice and even below novice with my meat, which is a weird quote. I didn't think I'd be saying that waking up today. Yeah, you were telling me that as we were eating. I didn't expect to have that bark. It almost looked like other people trying to do good brisket, but it didn't turn out as well. But that was pork, and it was just really, really tender too. But it's hard to match up to that brisket too. That was just so good.
The pork shoulder, I think, is what it was, just because of the cut of the meat. I didn't ask, but it had some TLC put into it for sure. I think it had some moisture added, probably either apple juice or cider vinegar or something along the way. It's what it tasted like to me, but not greasy at all, not slimy, not that, dripping with whatever. They did not add sauce to it. They left that up to you, which is what I love, because I don't like it overly sauced. I don't want to overpower the meat itself. So it was great. And then on Tuesdays, it's their Monday for the week. This first day they're open. They don't produce anything on Mondays. They're prepping. But Tuesday is that they don't do any specials. So they typically have just the norm, the cuts that they provide every day. So there weren't any specialty sausages, but their own house sausage. Very, very good. It was not anything super fancy. I think it was all pork at this point. I don't think there was anything different in it. And they do we were one day ahead of their burnt-in boudin that they do on some Wednesdays, and almost made a separate run back through there Wednesday morning to place an order and pick up on my way back through town.
I figured you would have told me, but I figured you didn't have the time to squeeze that in.
Yeah, it was just going to be a kind of a triangular pattern to try to get back to the Metro mess, so didn't do that. But man, I'll keep Wednesdays in my mind one day if I get a Wednesday off here and there. And head that way, but good stuff. So
yeah, that's a Bodacious BBQ. I guess they call it the Moberly location in Longview. Just amazing stuff. Rated number 4, Texas Monthly, in their most recent top 50. I don't think it's a top 100, but it's a top 50 list they did. I think they do it every 2 years, and they were number 4. Yeah, and you can tell that was just amazing. So after that, we had a reinsertion of Poor Planning Guy. Now, for those that have listened to the podcast in the past, when we had the Paul and JP Get to Know Paul special, we talked about Poor Planning Guy. I think that was the number 1 or number 2 story that we had. Now, I guess that we weren't ordering it, but anyway. So, if you don't mind, a little latitude here. Heck, no, you take it if we want. The plan was to go from Longview to Marshall. We found a Muni in Marshall that we thought was a par 3 because that suits our golf game. But so we get to the parking lot, because we even called the guy. I don't know if he's the pro or just the guy who worked. He seemed way too busy for our nonsense. But I forget the question you asked him. You had to repeat it a couple times. But so we make it over to Marshall, which was a 30-minute drive or so. Not that we had anything we had to do. But then we get there and we realize, hey, there's some par 4s in here. Hey,
and some 5s.
There's some 5s. We're probably not ready for this. It had been a couple years since Paul had played, and at least 10, maybe 12, 13 years since I had played. So I found this side of Texas par 3 courses. So we go from lunch in Longview at the Bodacious BBQ to Marshall, and then said, hey, wait a second. Let's go to this par 3 back in Longview. So we went Longview, Marshall, back to Longview. But really, it worked out for the best because our food settled, and getting out there in what was 107-degree heat index. But
yeah,
once we eventually made it to I just love this place because I'm a hat golfer. I'm terrible. I'll never be really that good. And I'll never really want to invest that much in it because don't have the time, don't have the money, but I do want to get some clubs, some big man clubs. But just that walking in there, and they even said, this ain't nothing special. There's just your mom and pop shop. I want to say, hey, no, don't brag on yourself. Like this is a cool place where you got the typical driving range out front. It was called the Divine Nine at Alpine, right? Alpine 9 at Divine, or Divine 9 at Alpine, par 3. You can find it with that combination of Google searches, but
on Alpine Road, I think, right? Was that the deal?
Yes. You're exactly right. And it was fan-freaking-tastic. We had a blast as we were talking later during the round. I've got audio of our in-round and post-round coverage coming up here. Exclusive. I got the exclusive rights to that here.
Oh, I'm glad.
On the Texas Porch. But just the golf pro, the wiry, skinny guy who had been smoking Marlboro Reds for 50 years, and you said he had his photo on the wall, and it looked just the same as he did in 1978. You had the sassy woman, the sassy, fast-talking East Texas twang woman. I rented some clubs, only $5. I bought 6 golf balls. Pretty much was what I needed anyway because I lost one every couple holes. Yeah. But that was just so perfect. A lot of people taking themselves too seriously. We didn't.
Not these guys.
Not these guys. We had a lot of fun. But just the ambiance, it was just, that is me, man. Par 3. I mean, I'm sure I'll play 18 eventually, or maybe a 9-hole regular. I guess that would be par 20, par 36. Yeah, on a regular 9-hole course. But that was just walking in. We knew we were going to have fun. Paul had his massive cooler there, so we weren't going to go and get dehydrated. But that whole thing was a blast. And would you like to go ahead? Sorry, I'm going to cue up my audio here while you go. Go ahead.
No, it was great. I mean, yeah, all the things, I agree totally. It was now I will say the only thing, and they warned us, but the only thing is that the cart path was kind of a suggestion at best in some places. There were a few cavernous washouts that probably could have required some sort of Land Rover device to navigate. We managed to find our way around, but a few areas you probably could have fallen into and not been heard from for a while. But I mean, it was hot. There was a breeze though. It was the greens weren't anything special. And she told us, I mean, she's like, I want you to get what you think you're getting here. And she was honest and completely with it.
She said, this is nothing special. We're a mom
for what
and
it
pop.
is. Yeah. For what it is, they put a lot of effort to get it to where it was. And it was very obvious. It's not a PGA course, but it was great. So
yeah, green's a little sandy. Green's a little sandy, ran a little hot. I'm a hot putter. I was coming in hot with a lot of my approaches anyway. I couldn't pitch and couldn't just lob it up there. But here is the official coverage of our teeing off of the festivities at, I think you knew I was taping this. Not much for coverage, but Paul hits it straight.
It's got good distance off the
Had a little tail there. He was sitting at about 120, and you stuck it. I don't know if you remember that. You were
first shot, best shot all day.
Oh my gosh, your first shot! I was like, good gosh, this guy. He hasn't played in 2 years, and you hit this. You were hitting mostly 8, 9. I mean, we broke out the non-pitching wedge a few times, even for our sorry game, at least my sorry game. But man, that first one, I was like, that's a beautiful shot. I know nothing about golf, but that was a beautiful shot. So well done, sir.
And that's about typical for me because it had literally been almost 2 years to the day since I had taken the covers, knocked the dust off the clubs. It had been about 2 years or 3 years before that. So it felt good. That first shot, and I was like, all right, this might be fun. And of course it was fun, but might have been my best shot of the day. I had a couple other pretty good ones. I overclubbed. I'm underconfident when I if I hit it well, I'll hit it pretty straight most of the time, not with my driver. But so we obviously didn't pull that out during this event. But I hit it over a few times, got more distance than the distance I should hit with that club, but I wasn't confident that I'd be able to. So I did overshoot a few with pretty good online as far as that goes, but little over there.
Yeah, some mulligans were taken. We found some trees on a few shots. At least I did. What was it? The 4th hole. It was probably 130. There's a little hazard in the middle. And that was my best shot, I think. My eight was okay on the day. I think we have our post-round coverage coming up here in a second. But and that's how I usually was with my irons. 9, 8, and mainly, I don't know the actual golf term, but these shorter irons, the pitch and wedge, was okay. Then once I finally got that muscle memory back, could hit it straight, but I just didn't have my gauge yet of my distance. But really had fun, and I want to do that more. Just, in par 3, I think. The top golf thing, par 3, and even maybe a 9-hole. But I don't know if this is too controversial of an opinion, but golf should not be more than 9 holes. 9 holes, I'm not saying just par 3, but that was so fun. The perfect amount of time. We played in less than an hour and a half. Got just hot enough, and the cold beverages tasted colder after that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was a good time. So it was a very good placeholder for the afternoon. I think if it had been, because the thought crossed my mind after we went, the last hole. I was like, man, we could turn here and take in a few more. We had all the time we needed, but I think we'd had enough at that point. We'd have been dragging with our tongues in the dirt a little bit if we had gone any further. But good times, for a couple of out of shape guys in the middle of the Texas summer heat. So,
I mentioned we had the exclusive broadcast rights. Here's the post-round coverage.
Noted broadcaster J.P. Heath, broadcasting from the Divine Nine at Alpine. Is that right, partner?
Got it, buddy.
So we just had a grueling match to the death. Final tallies, I needed Paul to go 11, and I had to par the last one. So, Paul.
I scored a 45. Where were you before?
I was 47 because I needed that par to go 50. That was my goal.
51.
51. 51, baby.
Not bad. Haven't golfed in, goodness, about 12 years at least. If you don't count Top Golf. But, Paul, I thought my 8-iron was the MVP for me. What was your MVP of the day?
Man, I really liked my 9 today. It did well for me. I never have much length, but
Mark it.
I way overshot with a 3.
And there you have it, folks. The final Divine 9.
I did the math. I was like, if I can break 50 here, that was my goal coming in. I wanted to get at least one par too. I think I had one bogey, one bogey on a par 3. I was consistent though. I had the 6s down. I had only 1 7, and I was topping a few of them, but I would just kind of punch it out there. But again, when I figured it out, it took 3 or 4 holes to get that muscle memory back. I think the back half of the 9, the last 4.5 holes. My short game, it was struggling. I'll need some help on my short game because I would putt the bejeebers, and I didn't read the sandy greens so well. But, man, that was so fun. Outside of the cart path, and we almost had to
capsized.
We almost capsized and turned over, and we didn't get eaten by a gator. But that was so fun, man.
I still think you should have played with the left-handed clubs that you got first when you rid of the first set. You should have just played with those because it would have been funny. It might have improved your game. I don't know.
I was so into it. I didn't even check. I just assumed they were, I just picked them up. They looked like the nicest, cleanest set of clubs. But then I got out of the first tee box, which was, again, down a rough cart path, about 150 yards away. And I got the wrong side of clubs. I got left-handed clubs, but
we also almost drove into a golf lesson in progress trying to find the first tee. But anyway, we got there.
That girl gave you the biggest stink eye. I was a husband and wife, and you were what turned out to be the wrong way. Like you were going down the ramp to exit from the 9 hole, and then she just gave you the stink eye because when you back up, it goes dirt, dirt, dirt. And like I wanted to say, woman, like this is. Don't take yourself so seriously. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There were no signage. There was no signage anywhere to direct you to the first tee. So, anyway.
So that
enough about golf.
That was a blast. That was so fun. I could have talked about that for a while. But then went back and kind of cooled off at the cabin. And then Tuesday night, we went to this. It was our only time in Jefferson outside of the McDonald's I went to on the way out of town. But it's called McGarrity's Saloon. I was thinking we were going to double up on some queso, which would have been fine, too, at Don Juan's. But Paul wisely chose McGarrity, Saloon, and Jefferson. And we talked about during dinner, but just such a unique tourist spot. It was part saloon, part speakeasy, part antique stores. They had all this, for lack of a better term, it was nice, but they just had all this crap hanging from the wall, like trombones, a bunch of instruments, like a squirrel carcass, like different masks. So it was this blend of like Spanish and Cajun and Texan and like, I don't know, what do you call it, 1940s or even 1860s type of saloon culture, right?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a very old building. I forget the name of the actual building and what it originally was there for, but right there on the edge. And I talked to people since then that, oh yeah, of course, I always go there when I go to Jefferson, you know. So I had never heard of it, but man, just very impressed. It just that it was 3 or 4 hardworking folks just working the whole place. You know, one seemed to be a little more experienced. She had things under her control and had a somewhat newer staff member, I think, was learning the ropes. But they were manning the bar. They were bringing stuff to everyone left and right and solving problems and putting out fires. But oh man, the vibe was just great. I mean, they had a really kind of Frank Sinatra era, you know, music going in the background, at a decent volume, and you know, there were quite a few people in there, but we were spaced out pretty safely, it felt like, and really good. I got shepherd's pie, which is just amazing, served in like a little cast iron pot, and you got the fish and chips, which I think you enjoyed, but you know, may have chose something different next time. But we enjoyed it. It was great. It was a perfect ending to the casual day we had, and it was nice, cool setting. We weren't sitting outside or anything. So, but man, I just love the vibe. They had a, you know, very old type tin roof, you know, modern but old tin roof on the top, modern installed, but and yeah, the decor was you know, a little over the top in lots of ways, but that was kind of what made it great. It's such a huge 20-foot ceiling or whatever, and it just brought the room down a little bit, made it a little more you know, just casual. So
yeah, and then walking out, go to the bathroom on the way out. It's in the back of the place. So I walk through that other part that we didn't go to before. They have all these old military pictures and just old time. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. I found out, no pattern, but it was amazing how they, and this I'm forgetting his name now, so I won't guess it. But they had this one man that was recognized. I don't know if he was a Jefferson resident or this all these special accommodations and pins and medals. It was really, really patriotic too, in a sense that it was really cool seeing that. So we leave the Bromantic dinner. We walk around the square, and it was great. I mean, nothing was open. We tried to go into the old general store. They basically said, "What are you doing here? Get out." We walked in like, you ever see that meme?
We're closed.
You ever see that meme of Grandpa Simpson, you know, where he goes, "Oh, hello. All right, see you later." He puts his hat back on and walks out the door. That was us.
That was us.
Okay, because it's really cool. It's in like a soda fountain. I said, well, I've blown the carb diet now. I'm going to get me some ice cream. Yeah. Give me some Texas Bluebell. But he walked in and goes, "Oops, sorry, sir, we're closed." I go, "All right, well, see you later." Big gulps, huh?
All right.
Well, see you later. So anyway, we walk around. It's just such a cool, and I don't know why my mind always goes to this thing, but like, what do people do here to make a living? It's obviously touristy. They have the bed and breakfast. You can see couples walking down the streets. There was one guy, I don't know if he was just walking laps, but it seemed like we saw him 4 or 5 times as he was walking back and down like the main drag there. But man, I could not recommend Jefferson more. And that we only spent, I mean, less than 2 hours there in actual Jefferson, but it made me want to come back. So then after that, we continue the Bromantic theme. We wanted to do something, since we knew at that point we weren't fishing, because Paul had accidentally left the lures. You had left them back in at the massive cabin, the estate at the holler. But then, so we go to this at Lake of the Pines. They had this entrance, and it was just breathtaking. So we spent an hour there, just not really talking much, not really doing much, but just having the water there with the woods. That was a pretty much perfect cap to the trip.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was right at sunset, so there's some clouds kind of rolling in, a little bit of a weather pattern change. And real nice sunset. It was breezy, and enough breeze that kept the bugs away till the sun actually went down, and then they just about swarmed us. But yeah, just pine trees everywhere. A few boats, very few boats on the lake. Again, it was like a random Monday or Wednesday night, Tuesday night, whatever it was. So it was really a nice way to end the day. It would have been fine to throw a line in the water, but we didn't do that this time. We could have if we had been sitting there anyway. But it was nice. A couple of boats around and people enjoying the campsites and whatnot. But it was really pretty, right near the dam, kind of on an old broken fishing pier, I guess is what it was. Mm-hmm. But enjoyed that. It was a good way to end the day for sure.
Yeah. Did you at any time worry about those two guys sneaking behind us and getting the tight wire and just dragging us by our necks into the water? Did you fear that?
There was something shady going on back there. They had a boat, but they weren't in the boat. The boat was still in the back of the truck, not a trailer, just thrown in the back of the boat, John boat. There was, glow in the dark things being brought out and lanterns and all sorts of devices being strung together behind us. I'm not real sure what was happening there, mm-hmm. but we did not get drug into that or get drug out of there by our toenails or anything. So I guess we survived it.
We gave them the knowing nod and might have said howdy, but they left us alone. We left them alone, the Texas way. But so then after the Bromantic night, then some other beverages were possibly may or may not consumed. But then I had, for the first time in the history of the Texas Sports Podcast, I had a presentation to make to Paul.
We've had a great time out here. As you can see, my head is really close here.
Look at that.
On the Mary. Mary, you're awesome, Mary. So for the first time in podcast history, Paul, we have a gift. I'd like you to unveil to the masses as the AC starts up
Yes. There we go. Very nice.
It's a T-shirt.
Your comments on being the first one, I guess besides me and Mrs. Texas Porch, to get one.
Very nice. I love it. That's awesome. I'm very proud. I will wear it proudly.
There you go.
Represent the podcast well.
Guerrilla marketing at its finest, folks.
So, Paul, congrats. Since I actually saw you for the first time in almost 4 months, could actually give you the shirt, and I'll have to find a way. But I guess Josh needs to be next on the list because I see him like twice a week at our third-rate taco place. But anyway,
we're gonna have tacos soon, I'm sure.
You are required to wear that shirt 4 times a week.
Okay. Oh, is that what I agreed to? Okay.
Well, I don't know if you knew
wear
that.
It looks like it's pretty durable. It'll hold up. I intended to wear it tonight, not for the viewing audience because they can't see us, but. Yeah. So anyway, very good stuff. It will be worn in the next couple days for sure.
All right.
We'll
get out of here shortly, but here's an abbreviated version of This Week in Texas Sports, and History, courtesy of some of these notes from the Texas State Historical Association, because you can't have a pod without This Week in Texas Sports and History, folks. But anyway, Texas. I promise production is coming. Danny Merrill, wait. July 16th of 2010, Benji Molina legs out a triple at Fenway Park to become the 8th Ranger to hit for the cycle. That was on this night 10 years ago as we record this.
There you go.
July 18th of 1917, the United States War Department issued orders mobilizing the 36th Infantry Division, known as the Texas Division, or the T-Patchers. It was at Camp Bowie in Tarrant County. That's your way. Lamar's way, actually. Friend of the podcast. But the division was initially composed of Texas National Guard troops. They fought in WW1 and again in WW2. So the War Department made National Guard units available to the governors in 1946, after WW2, of course. But then that 36th Division was reactivated. So the 36th was called to active duty during the Cuban Missile Crisis, but was eliminated in 1968. In 1946, veterans of the unit founded the 36th Division Association. That's something I obviously don't know a lot about Texas history, but that was something really cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, very interesting. That's neat.
July 18th, 1960, the National League votes to add franchises in New York and Houston. Later, the Colt 45s. July 18th, 1876, the Texas and Pacific Railway finally completed its line into Fort Worth. Construction of the line had stalled. Get this. Imagine a Texas story out of this. So they had completed construction just 16 miles to the east at Eagle Ford. I had not heard. I don't remember that going on I-30 in between Dallas and Fort Worth. But So the Texas legislature they had the power to revoke the charter for completing the railroad and take away the land subsidy. So the T&P hires this company to complete the line before the legislature adjourned. So they went day and night and day, a little more than a mile per day. A mile per day, a track was laid.
Jeez.
That, to me, that sounds fast. Even now, a century plus later, I guess that'd be 100, almost 50 years later. But holiday spirit filled the town when the line finally reached Fort Worth. Success made this guy John Morgan Jones. He was a local hero, marked the beginning of a new era of Fort Worth. So all that doesn't happen in time. Who knows how Texas history is different, because Fort Worth was obviously the gateway to the West out there. All right, speeding along, I need to know more about not just Texas history, but Fort Worth history. I thought that those were two great notes about Town of the Cow there. July 19th of 2013, Astros Brandon Barnes hits for the 8th cycle in team history. July 21st, 1821. Did you know this, Paul? The flag of Spain was lowered for the last time in San Antonio, ending 3 centuries of Spanish involvement in Texas.
Very nice.
July 22nd of 1887, at Panhandle, Texas, Henry Harold Brooks published the Panhandle Herald, now the oldest continuously published newspaper in the Texas Panhandle. And a couple of Texas birthdays this week in Texas history. Actress Selena Gomez turns 28 years young. She was born July 22nd of 1992 in Grand Prairie. Her birthday coming up on Wednesday. Also, great Texan celebrating a birthday this week, July 22nd. Also on Wednesday, future Heisman winner was born. Woodrow Wilson, great, and Notre Dame great Tim Brown was born in Dallas in 1966. He turns 54 coming up on Wednesday, the great Tim Brown.
There you go.
Well, Paul, we did it. We made it through.
Good. We made it all the way through. Discussed it all. Talked about it. Hashed it out. I think we covered all the high points and some low points. Yeah.
Yeah. Filled in all the details. Mary, shout out to you. We love Mary. Good job, Mary.
Shout out.
All right, P. Diddy. I've got Mitch coming up. An expose with the Mitcher coming up. Get to know Mitch coming up in episode 23. And then later on, who knows where this Texas world will take us. But we'll talk to you when we talk to you, good sir. Thanks for the trip, the laughs, and mostly, thank you, Texas, Paul. Thank you.
Texas. Thanks, buddy. Enjoyed it. It was fun.
Stay tuned for more editions of the Texas Porch. You can go to the Texas Porch and Mitch Design website for more episodes. It's a big help if you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, TuneIn, as we discussed earlier. We're also on Alexa. Ask Alexa to play the Texas Porch Podcast. But always on the Texas Porch Pod on Twitter and Facebook as well. Have a great rest of this day or night. God bless you, and God bless Texas. We'll talk to you next time out here on the Texas Porch. Buddy!
Texas.
Better go poop now.